First of all, I like to start with your career actually. When we look back at your career, we see lots of documentaries about nature, like State of Planet, Life Story, and Africa. I'd like to ask that, how did interest start for you?
Gosh, I think I was interested in animals from when I was about 2 years old. It was just sort of natural. I used to go out in the garden looking for beetles and watching things. But I studied zoology at university, and I was very into photography, and I think those two things came together, and it seemed a very natural career for me to do.
You studied zoology, you said?
Yes.
Now I can see the scientific side of your documentaries actually. It's not only something to watch actually, it's also about what's going on in a scientific way. You want to add something about it?
Explaining to the audience how animals' lives work, for example, why animals do certain things and not other things. And I think that's what drives all of us in the Natural History Unit. We have an opportunity to show people and tell people about the natural world.
What is project, the idea of the project come to you?
Well, we've done quite a lot of series like Planet Earth 2 and Blue Planet 2, where you have 12, 14 different stories from around the world in each programme. And as filmmakers, sometimes that's quite frustrating. So you spend a month somewhere filming an animal and you're waiting for it to do one particular thing, which is what that story is all about. And then we leave, but we know that there's a much bigger story to tell of that animal's life beyond that particular moment we're trying to capture. So we thought we'd spend, well, in the end, hundreds of days filming each of these animals, and each programme would be about one animal, on a period, about 2-year period in that animal's life. And we would simply see what happens. We simply see what their lives are like when you can follow them for so long. That was the core of the idea of Dynesties.
What are the reasons you choose those 5 kind of animals?
I think there are 2 reasons, really. One was that because we're asking people to spend 50 minutes with one kind of animal for each film, we thought we have to choose animals that most people actually like. People might see, they're doing a film on tigers, I really want to watch a film on tigers. But the other thing was how we wanted to film. So we wanted to be able to get close to these animals, and we wanted to understand their family structure and their family lives. And to do that, we had to work with scientists, people who studied a family of animals for many, many years. So, for example, chimpanzees, there's a scientist called Jill Preetz, an American scientist, who studied that group of chimpanzees for 20 years. So when our team arrived on location, she could say, well, that chimp with the scar, with the torn ear, that's David the leader, yes. Or that one there is a big rival of his, and that's his mother, and that's his friend, and that's another enemy. And she could tell our teams what the whole sort of soap opera of the lives of this group, so that our team could understand from day one, when a chimp did something, what that meant to the other chimps. And also, because the scientists have followed those chimpanzees for so long, the chimpanzees were used to those scientists being quite close. And as long as we work with the scientists and we followed their rules, the body language and way you look when you're close to chimps, our teams could stay that close to the chimpanzees for 2 years, and you really feel you're in their world.
Chimpanzees is all about actually the family.
Yeah.
It's the core idea, like you said. Actually, it's family and the survival.
Yes.
And the continuity of the family. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's right. I mean, the core of the series is about the power of family. And these particular animals, they can do something most animals can't do. Most animals will produce a few offspring and they hope that some might survive. But these are animals that can dominate a big area of the landscape. They can create a kingdom, if you like. And as long as they can hold on to that kingdom, their bloodline will continue through many, many generations. So we wanted to look at those big animal families and what it takes to stay in control. And sometimes the biggest enemies come from within the family, or from those closest to you. And that's it's a very human thing. I think we understand what that means.
Yeah. Like you said, it's so human actually. Dynasties, we not only watching it, we actually become witnesses to what's going on in the nature. So I think that mankind, it's now starting to actually see what's going on in the nature.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's been interesting because the series has started to air in the UK, and we've seen how the audiences have become so engrossed in those stories and emotionally connected to those stories. And that's because there are so many parallels between how those animal families work and how our families and how our communities work that we actually understand that there's not much difference.
Yeah, exactly. And it's when it's about human, it's also about politics. You know,
Yes.
When I watching the first episode, Chimpanzees, I was watching like a politic movie actually. The individuals trying to take power or something else, maybe fictional.
Yeah.
With the editing. What did you use? Which methods did you use to avoid this risk?
I mean, our idea at the beginning of the series was that we would spend hundreds of days following each of these 5 animals, and whatever happened, whatever the story was that unfolded, would be the story we would put on the screen. Whether that story was sad or happy, whether there wasn't really much of a story at all, it was a big risk to take that approach, and we've kept really rigorously to that. So really, the editing process has been about stripping out everything that isn't relevant, say in the chimp story, to the alpha male whose story we're telling. Any action that doesn't actually affect his story, we get rid of. So you're left with his story, and that story unfolds as it unfolded in front of our camera teams.
It's also it's a very dramatic story. It's also got its strong dramatic moments, especially when we see the wounds in close-ups, etc. How did the development in shooting technologies, the way you tell the stories with this dramatic moments to the narration?
I'm sorry, you're asking about the technology of filming?
Yeah. Because, I'm sorry, I really think that the close-ups actually, the wounds of the David,
Yes.
it really lifts up the emotional status of the film.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking you, because it doesn't look easy to shoot that wounds, etc. years before.
No, well, I mean, that was part of the reason we needed to work with these scientific studies and these groups of animals that are used to having people quite close. Helps people connect with these films. When you look into a chimpanzee's eyes, you see intelligence, but you need to have a close-up shot to do that. So yes, that was a really important approach, to see these animals from up close and to see them in detail.
Did you study the dramatic form of the film with maybe some people from the theater and storytelling?
No, I mean, I think we're all interested in story and the structure of story. But no, as I say, really those stories are how they unfolded. We haven't manipulated the stories at all. It's really crucial that these stories have absolute integrity.
Now I want to ask about David Attenborough. He's almost like a legend for this kinds of documentaries. What did working with him contribute to this series? And you always had the idea with working with him at the beginning.
Working with David Attenborough brings the same thing to every project we do with him. So he has huge knowledge. There's nothing we can tell him about chimpanzees. There's an awful lot he can tell us that we don't know. And the same with all of the animals. So he brings, the viewers know that this is a man talking from knowledge. He's not reading it off a page. So he brings that integrity to it. And he questions as well. He wants to know that everything in that film is factually correct. So we'll work through the script with him and he'll say, so where did this fact come from? And who's done the scientific research to back this up? So the audience knows, I think they sort of feel that has happened, even if we're not telling them. You feel there's been a process through which everything you see on screen is factually absolutely accurate.
Yeah, when we hear his voice, as a viewer, I feel safe.
Yeah, exactly.
We are seeing the real thing now.
Yeah. And he's a brilliant storyteller, obviously.
Especially the younger audience, wants to participate with the story, not only watching. Like the development of social media, we don't want to only see the thing, only watch the thing. We want to participate story actually.
Yes.
And I really felt that feeling from when I watching the film. Did you did anything special to create this feeling?
I think people are just engaging more and more in that way with natural history content, but I think particularly with this series because people have got so emotionally engaged with the series. So we look at Twitter when the series is going out, and the amount of people who are reacting to the story and wanting to tell people how they feel about that.
I want to ask you your future projects. Do you have anything in mind for the future?
Yes, the Natural History Unit has got a lot of projects lined up. I'm trying to finish this one, and I'm hoping that I'm going to jump onto one of the next big ones. But we have other big projects lined up. Yeah.
But I think you can't give details now.
I'm not in a position to tell you what they are yet.
Okay, then. I thank you.
No, thank you very much.
I want to ask that we see the BBC label in almost the most important nature documentaries in last years. What's the importance of these projects for the BBC?
It's where we're world class, and we're not ashamed to say it. We're incredibly proud of the fact that the Natural History Unit, based in Bristol, for more than 60 years has pioneered groundbreaking storytelling through the natural world. We publish papers off the back of new scientific discoveries. The team are so dedicated in terms of going after every single shot that perhaps has never been filmed before. An element of that struggle that these individual groups are going through almost kind of reflects, it feels, humanity's struggle in some ways as well, that really primal struggle for survival.
We know that we have a certain group of documentary watchers, actually.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? You have any special ideas about it?
It's brilliant to see the passion and the love that there is for really groundbreaking documentary making in Turkey. Whether that's through BBC Earth, which is here on pay TV, or on the national broadcaster on TRT as well. We've had a long partnership and association with documentaries, and I'm really looking forward to that continuing over the next few years.
Yeah, well, when I said to my friends I'll interview with the documentary crew of the BBC, they all got wow. Actually, I want to ask the new documentary projects of BBC. You're working on something special for right now.
Yeah, so BBC Earth, our linear channel, which is here on Digitac, DSmart, TV Boo, as well as our licensing to the public broadcaster and other free-to-air channels, or also online platforms as well. We plan several years in advance. You've probably heard that Dynesties was 4 years in the making. And the great thing is that having this fantastic in-house team, as well as the independent production companies that we work with, we have this sure pipeline of this kind of quality of programming coming, for the next 4, 5, 10 years. And these projects take such investment, such planning, such creativity, and the way that we work with our international partners to deliver those means that we know, or we plan for what's coming down the pipeline in the next 4 or 5 years. So there are other stories that are coming. So Serengeti, for example, at the beginning of 2019, that will also premiere on BBC Earth.